Hey guys, imagine this. You're rummaging through a dusty attic when your fingers graze a crumbling envelope. It's brittle paper whispering secrets of a love long lost. Sounds like the opening scene of a rom-com, right? Well, spoiler alert, it's about to get way more complicated. Before we unravel this hidden love story, smash that like button if you believe in second chances, and drop a comment about that one old crush you can't shake off. Now grab your favorite drink, dim those lights, and let's embark on a journey through the hidden depths of a romance sealed away for decades. Trust me, it'll be a suspenseful roller coaster that makes you question every awkward high school dance you ever attended. In the dusty confines of her late grandmother's attic, Sarah stumbled upon a chest that looked like it had time-traveled straight from the Victorian era. The hinges creaked like an old man with a bad back, and a thick layer of dust coated the chest like icing on a forgotten cake. As she pried it open, the musty scent of old paper filled her nostrils, sparking a thrill that sent tingles up her spine. Inside, neatly bundled letters whispered stories of yesteryears, momentarily transporting her from the present into a world of ink and romance. Among them, a particularly tattered envelope caught her eye, sealed with a vibrant wax imprint that bore the initials T. Was this the start of an epic love saga, or just her grandmother's way of keeping the spice alive in her old age? Either way, curiosity bloomed within her like a wildflower brought forth by spring's gentle coaxing. Carefully, she lifted the letter and unfolded it with the kind of reverence usually reserved for ancient scrolls or the last slice of pizza at a party. As the words danced off the page, the fiery prose from a man named Thomas revealed a fervent affection for her grandmother, Eleanor, woven with tales of stolen glances and secret rendezvous that made Sarah's heart flutter. It was like reading a chapter from a Jane Austen novel, complete with all the swoon-worthy drama of a modern rom-com. Oh, Grandma, you were a real heartbreaker. She laughed to herself, imagining the prim and proper woman she had known in her childhood donning a frilly gown, sneaking away under the moonlight like something out of a fairy tale. But as she wiped the dust from her fingertips, a tightening in her chest hinted at the shadows lurking behind the swathes of idealized love stories. Determined to discover the truth behind this unexpected romance, Sarah threw herself into a quest that felt part detective work, part emotional roller coaster. Each letter she unveiled revealed not just the ebb and flow of young love, but also hinted at a web of intrigue, missed connections, life choices, and regrets that loomed like ominous thunderclouds. It was as if she had found a time capsule filled with emotions, echoes of laughter, and the sweet sting of lost opportunities. The aroma of old ink hung in the air as she pieced together fragmented details like a puzzle, inching closer to uncovering what had separated her grandmother and Thomas. The irony was not lost on her. For all her academic prowess, this little treasure had thrown her into a heart-driven chase more convoluted than any thesis she had crafted. Each evening, Sarah spread the letters across her dining room table, the flickering candlelight casting ghostly shadows upon the words that had lain silent for decades. As she read, she could almost hear the whispers of her grandmother, sharing tales of heartbreak and hope as if they were cozy secrets between the covers of a well-loved book. The sound of rain drumming against the window added a sense of urgency to her mission, while the forgotten aroma of cocoa wafted through the air, wrapping her in a warm embrace that reminded her of childhood cuddles with her grandmother on stormy nights. But the deeper she delved, the more she could sense the weight of untold stories pressing against her chest, each heartbeat reminding her that love and loss often dance a delicate waltz that leaves its partners staggering. But here she was, a modern-day Indiana Jones, unearthing a treasure no one had promised her, possibly at the cost of her own heart. If love stories had taught her anything, it was that they frequently came loaded with a side of bittersweet fruit salad. As she began to connect the dots of Aliner and Thomas's saga, Sarah could almost feel the echo of her grandmother's laughter through the pages, a melody woven in between the fibers of paper, a song of youthful abandon and lingering hope. Conflicted, she wondered if perhaps love was not merely a fairy tale, but a messy adventure filled with tangled emotions, missteps, and the inevitable what-ifs. It was an irony of life that while she sought answers, she found herself falling into a rabbit hole of fascination where the past beckoned her to participate. With a glimmer of mischief in her eye, she made a vow to trace Thomas's story, convinced that the trail of love once hidden could still pulse with a heartbeat. After all, if a dusty old letter could spark such passion, what other secrets awaited to be unraveled in the quaint village of Eldenwood? As Sarah plunged into the yellowed pages of the letters, a world of heartache and heroism unfurled before her. The crisp scent of old paper mingled with the mustiness of the attic, where she'd unceremoniously dumped boxes of dusty treasures. She learned that Thomas was more than just a name in a faded letter. He was a war hero, a man whose bravery on the battlefield echoed throughout his small town. Yet, it wasn't all medals and parades. Between the lines of passionate prose, she caught whispers of a love story tangled in the thorns of class, a bittersweet romance that could make even the toughest soldier shed a tear, or at least choke on his whiskey. What irony, she thought, that the true battle raged not against enemies afar, within one's own heart and society, leaving scars that no metal could ever quite cover. Each letter dripped with sweet nothings and profound longing, yet undertones of conflict thrashed like a cat in a bath. Sarah imagined Thomas dashing in his army uniform, holding Aliner's delicate hand, their fingers entwined like climbers on a treacherous cliff, nervously glancing around for disapproving glances from the upper crusts of society. She struggled to comprehend what forces could keep them apart. Was it the chilling glare of classism or the whisperings of scandal? The quill strokes painted a vivid picture of desire and heartache, the kind you could almost hear echo in the halls of time, like a sad soundtrack from a black and white film, underscoring every divine moment that could have been. She found herself rooting for these star-crossed lovers, eager to uncover the plot twist that changed their fate, determined to rewrite the ending of this love story. Sarah set out to track down Mr. Alder, the local historian with a reputation for knowing every secret hidden in the town's dusty archives, like a human version of Wikipedia on the history of heartaches. The moment she stepped into his cluttered study, a medley of old parchment and leather wafted through the air, filling her nose with the nostalgically reassuring aroma of knowledge. Mr. Alder, with spectacles perched precariously on his nose, and a mischievous smile that hinted at countless untold tales, shuffled through stacks of documents like a magician pulling rabbits out of hats. Ah, but just wait, he mused, his voice gravelly and rich. Every love story worth telling comes with a side of heartbreak. Sarah couldn't help but think he might as well have stamped caution, may cause feelings on his forehead, as Mr. Alder revealed secrets sprinkled like glittering confetti across the landscape of history. Sarah felt herself caught in a vivid tapestry, woven with threads of joy, sorrow, and blurred lines. He told her about a secret rendezvous, hidden beneath a canopy of stars, where Thomas and Aliner briefly forgot the world around them, laughing like two kids who just spotted a UFO. But he also warned her about the darker corners of the past, where love wasn't simply sweet, but oftentimes bitter, like coffee brewed too long, leaving a lingering taste of regret. The town held stories of envy and ambition that could sour even the purest sentiments, and Sarah found herself grappling with the irony. Sometimes love is the very thing that frees us, but it can also be the invisible chains that keep us shackled. This was not just a tale of romance. It was a cautionary saga sculpted in emotional stone. Every detail Mr. Alder shared weighed heavily on her, as though she had inherited bricks from the past, both a gift and a burden wrapped in mystery. The historian's words echoed in her mind, lingering like a funky song you can't shake off no matter how hard you try. Would she dismantle this love story to uncover the truth, even if it meant unearthing old wounds? Yet, the thrill of discovery pumped through her veins, igniting her ambitions like a cheap firework, caught like a soap opera character, poised on the edge of a shocking reveal. She knew she had to see this tale through to the end. Just like every true love story, this one demanded a leap of faith, and Sarah was ready to dive deep into those unfathomable waters, come what may. The air in Sarah's family home buzzed with an unshakable tension, thick enough to cut with a knife, or at least a hot butter knife, if that imagery tickles your fancy. As she broached the subject of her grandmother Aliner's past, she could almost hear the furious rustling of her relatives' feathers, like a flock of angry pigeons disturbed from their lunch break. Grandma Aliner had become a legend in her own right, a myth cloaked in whispers and sidelong glances, and Sarah felt an irresistible pull to unravel the threads of a story nearly forgotten. Distant family members exchanged nervous glances, eyebrows arching high as if they were auditioning for a Shakespearean drama, each hoping to summon the great no from the stage director directly, yet spurred by an intoxicating blend of curiosity and rebellion. She packed her bags in defiance, her mind teetering on the brink of adventure, or the classic teenage, I'll show them, rebellion, just without the angst and eyeliner. The quest for the truth awaited her, shimmering like a treasure map on a pirate's dusty floorboard, promising more than just a glimpse into Aliner's tapestry of love and loss. The quaint town of Riverview greeted her with a comforting yet bittersweet aroma of fresh baked bread, sweet with the promise of home, and yet lingering with the sadness of what must have been lost. Oddly familiar, the cobbled streets whispered secrets as Sarah navigated her way through the patchwork of enchanted little shops and elderly passers-by. With each step, she imagined Aliner, with her flowing skirts and hopeful gaze, walking beside her, ready to spill tales of her heart's dearest desires. But no, that was an echo of the past, and Sarah had to focus. Just up ahead, like a beacon of hope, stood Mrs. Hughes' cottage, nestled between two towering oaks, its faded paint peeling like the last remnants of summer skin, the very embodiment of a treasure chest that harbored the weight of decades in its walls. Clutching her knapsack like Harry Potter clutching his wand, Sarah put on her bravest face and approached the door, ready to face whatever revelations lay within. Mrs. Hughes welcomed her with open arms and an unexpected sparkle in her eyes, reminiscent of a mischievous cat who knows where all the truly good sunbeams lie, just waiting for a chance to pounce. As they settled into the parlor, the rich smell of herbal tea wafted through the air, filling the room with its earthy charm. Sarah felt the warmth of the old woman's stories wash over her like the first rays of dawn, illuminating the shadowy corners of the past. Just then, Mrs. Hughes leaned in, bearing the weight of years gone by, and said, "Did I ever tell you about the time Alina was supposed to marry Thomas?" The suspense in that moment could have sparked a whole season of a soap opera, filled with dramatic music and swirling close-ups. But alas, what followed was far more painful than any dramatic plot twist. Alina hadn't simply run away. She had vanished without a trace, leaving broken dreams scattered in her wake, like autumn leaves in the wind. Suddenly, the walls of the cottage seemed to close in, suffused with the echoes of Alina's laughter, now tinged with a chilling absence that made the tea grow cold in front of them. Heart pounding like a disco beat, Sarah listened as Mrs. Hughes unfurled the tragic tale of love turned sour. Alina had planned to elope with Thomas, a handsome young man with the dreams of the world in his eyes, and a flair for making terrible puns. But on the eve of their escape, the universe decided to throw a cosmic curveball. Something had gone wrong, and the last the townsfolk had seen of her was the sparkle of her wedding dress turning down a rustling path of wildflowers, never to return. It felt as though time itself had paused, chuckling knowingly at the irony that a love story of such breadth ended in a vacuum of silence, buried beneath dirt and speculation like an ancient artifact. Sarah swallowed hard. She could almost hear the ghostly echoes of her grandmother's laughter, meeting the sharp bite of lost potential. Determined to dig deeper, Sarah felt the passionate flames of her investigation ignite, burning brighter than her grandmother's wedding bouquet. What kind of mystery had kept Alina's spirit locked away for decades, like a VHS tape gathering dust on a shelf? The culmination of lost love and family secrets hung over her like the heavy fog of an old noir film, just waiting for the right detective. Okay, maybe a 20-something with an innate talent for unraveling chaos, armed with Mrs. Hughes' revelations. She sensed that the key to unlocking the past rested not only in thoughtful reflection, but also in the bravery to confront her family. Perhaps Alina's story had the power to heal old wounds, if only her relatives could step back and look at the love hidden beneath layers of anger and resentment. Sarah inhaled deeply, her heart racing in anticipation. The journey had only just begun, while the shadows of the past clamored for a chance to dance once more in the lingering light of truth. Imagine, if you will, the musty scent of aged wood as Sarah, with trembling hands and a heart racing like a caffeinated squirrel, pried open the decades-old chest in her grandmother's attic. Dust motes danced in the sharp beam of sunlight, providing a stage for the drama that lay trapped within the faded layers of time. chest creaked like an ancient ship's hull, bearing its secrets like a reluctant captain. Then, in a serendipitous twist, Sarah's fingers brushed against a hidden latch, opening a compartment that exhaled a gust of aged paper and forgotten words, beckoning her to come closer. Little did she know, this was not just any letter. This was a final whisper from Alina to Thomas. A message laden with love, heartbreak, and the heaviness of a choice made in the shadowy corners of scandalous times. As Sarah carefully unfolded the letter, the faint scent of ink and lavender wafted up, a ghost of Alina's presence lingering with every word. The ink, though faded, was still remarkably legible, each stroke a testament to a love that had weathered storms and calm seas. Alina's elegant script rolled out a heartbreaking tale, how she had vanished not out of whimsy, but out of an overwhelming desire to shield Thomas from the gossipy clutches of society. Picture a medieval knight, armor clanking, charging into battle, armed with nothing but love, and a protective instinct as strong as Wonder Woman's lasso. But instead of glory, he found a fractured heart hidden behind scandal's looming shadow. And suddenly, Sarah felt like the audience of a shoddy soap opera, wondering how the truth could remain buried for so long. Conflicted emotions washed over Sarah like a tidal wave crashing onto a deserted beach, leaving her breathless and bewildered. Betrayal and sacrifice wove themselves around her heart like ivy on the walls of a forgotten castle. Was Alina's love a twisted irony, a selfless act that cast her in the role of both heroine and villain? The chaos of human emotions echoed in her mind. How love could dazzle like the sun on a summer day, yet also cast long shadows that chilled the soul. In her heart, Sarah felt like a character in a Jane Austen novel, seated at a tea table, grappling with the weight of societal expectations, and the revelation that love can sometimes be as messy as a food fight at a wedding. As she delved deeper into Alina's words, Sarah could almost taste the bitterness of heartbreak mingled with the sweetness of unspoken affection. Each phrase revealed a turbulent world where societal norms loomed like skyscrapers, casting tiny shadows on fragile hearts. Alina had danced on the edge of scandal with the grace of a ballerina, but the consequences remained dire. The irony dripped from the revelation like an overripe fruit bursting on the floor. Who knew the true cost of love could be eternal silence? Sarah chuckled softly to herself, imagining Alina sitting in a parlor somewhere, sipping tea while composing an apology note to history, but deciding that staying silent was a smarter move than dodging a cannonball of judgment. With the final words of the letter lingering in the air like the last notes of a poignant symphony, Sarah felt the weight of a hidden legacy settle upon her. This revelation forged a new connection between generations, stitching together the fabric of heartbreak and resilience. The attic was no longer just a dusty prison of forgotten family heirlooms. It had transformed into a sanctuary of truths long buried. With a newfound appreciation for the complexities of love, she realized that sometimes the stories we hide are the very ones that illuminate our path forward. In that moment, Sarah vowed to honor Aliner's sacrifice, believing that in the tapestry of life, even a frayed thread can weave a tale of beauty, laughter, and unexpected joy. It was a bright spring morning when Sarah awoke with a determined heart, the kind that thrummed like a distant drumbeat, urging her to action. The smell of fresh coffee wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the earthy scent of rain-soaked soil outside. Today marked a turning point, a chance to honor her grandmother's legacy buried in a pile of dusty love letters. Those fragile pieces of paper, yellowed with age and penned in ink that had long faded, told a story that was richer than any soap opera. Sarah could almost hear her grandmother's voice, urging her to make sense of the tangled web of love and sacrifice, as if whispering, "Get on with it, girl." With every letter she read, Sarah was transported back to a time when love letters were the texts of their day, long, heartfelt tomes filled with poetic flourishes that today's emojis could never convey. She envisioned her grandmother, Aliner, sitting under the old oak tree, quill in hand, pouring her soul into words meant for her beloved Thomas. It was romantic in a way that made rom-coms look like a joke, except for the bittersweet reality that their love was never quite perfect. Thomas had his demons, shaped by war and heartache, while Aliner's spirit shone like a lighthouse on a stormy night, guiding him home. Sarah chuckled at the thought of her modern struggles, where most love stories end in a ghosting instead of a heartfelt farewell, and realized that love was as messy then as it is now, in all its glorious, complicated chaos. Inspired, Sarah dove headfirst into planning the exhibition like a contestant in a reality show. The Great British Exhibit-Off. The village hall, with its creaky floorboards and faded floral wallpaper, would soon bloom with the poignant echoes of love. She envisioned tables draped in crisp white cloths, adorned with framed love letters, lovingly preserved behind glass like museum artifacts. Baskets of dark chocolate and fragrant blooms would fill the air with sweet distraction as guests reminisced over the struggles and triumphs painted in ink between Thomas and Aliner. It was time for the villagers to confront the tangled history like it was their favorite retro TV show, complete with love triangles and improbable plot twists, but with a charm that made the past feel vibrantly present. As the big day approached, Sarah felt the familiar pang of nerves, yet excitement bubbled beneath the surface like soda fizzing in a glass. Would the villagers come? Would her family finally understand that love, much like Grandma's favorite fruitcake recipe, required a delicate balance of ingredients, sweet moments, bitter sacrifices, and the occasional nutty character? The setup day was a cosmic carnival, with Sarah directing the volunteers as they hung love letters like artwork, transforming the village hall into a shrine of romance against the backdrop of chattering voices and laughter. The whir of the old ceiling fans mixed harmoniously with the scent of freshly baked goods wafting from the kitchen, creating an atmosphere where past and present were less like distant relatives and more like friends sharing a glass of wine. Finally, the moment arrived. An eclectic crowd gathered, mingling with curiosity and whimsy, each face illuminated by the glowing warmth of shared history. As Sarah stood before the gathered villagers and her family, a wave of emotion welled up, stirring her spirit like a good old-fashioned movie montage. As she recounted Thomas and Aliner's love story, laughter and tears intermingled, revealing the intricate tapestry of human connection and the beauty of closure amidst loss. She realized that love isn't merely a fleeting sentiment, it's a continuum, a pulse that extends across generations and time. With that revelation, Sarah breathed deeply, a soft smile embracing her lips. She had not only bridged the gap between the past and present, but had also carved a niche for love's enduring legacy in her heart. In the quaint village of Eldermere, where cobblestone streets twisted like old melodies, and the scent of blooming lavender hung thick in the air, young Alara felt as if she were stepping into a time capsule, leaving behind the digital noise of her contemporary life. On a fateful afternoon, with the sun casting golden rays through the dusty attic window, she discovered a hidden staircase leading to a world shrouded in silence. As her fingers brushed against cracked wood and forgotten memories, a peculiar chill tingled down her spine. There, nestled between stale Christmas decorations and moth-eaten quilts, lay a stack of leather-bound diaries, each one whispering secrets of a bygone era, catching her attention like a glittering treasure in a pirate's chest. With a heart racing like a wooden roller coaster, Alara gingerly opened the first diary, its pages yellowed and frayed, holding the scars of time like an old soldier. The moment she began to read, the ink danced across her vision, revealing her grandmother Claire's careful cursive, each loop and swirl a haunting echo of a life lived beneath the heavy hand of societal expectations. As she delved deeper into the text, Alara's senses ignited. The musty scent of ancient paper mixed with the faint aroma of her grandmother's favorite perfume, a heady blend of lavender and vanilla. The words painted vivid scenes, like colors splashed on a canvas, detailing a forbidden romance that made her heart race and pulse quicken. It felt as though she were reading a script for a vintage rom-com, with every twist filled with tension and desire. The more Alara read, the more she was ensnared by the tension weaving its way through the entries. Claire spoke of stolen glances and lingering touches, of moonlit rendezvous hidden beneath the very branches of the village's leafy trees, where the world of tradition and expectation faded away into shadows. Her heart thudded at the mention of a mysterious lover, a man whose very existence was a scandal in a society that decreed who could love whom, like a modern take on Romeo and Juliet, though without the tragic ending, and certainly less family feud drama. As Alara turned the page, she could almost hear the whispers of her grandmother's heart, pulsing with passion and fear. It was as if those dusty words had come alive, and she shared a breath with this fervent spirit from the past. Yet among the florid descriptions of longing and joy lurked the sharp edges of sacrifice. Alara could feel the weight of societal judgment pressing against Claire's shoulders like an unwelcome cloak, and each entry revealed the bitter truth that love seldom dances free and wild. It often comes shackled with secrets and sorrow. Shadows of doubt crept in as Claire wrote of her struggle between duty and desire, leaving Alara to wonder whether love, when it tumbles against the rigid walls of expectation, often breaks before it can flourish. The bittersweet irony struck her. How her grandmother's whispered romance contrasted sharply against her own life, where love was as common as online streaming services, and just as trivialized, a heartbreaking difference that wrapped around Alara's heart like a vine with sharpened thorns. As the last ray of daylight faded, leaving the attic illuminated only by the faint glow of her phone, Alara closed the diary, her mind a whirlwind of emotions, a mix of nostalgia, admiration, and a twinge of sorrow for the love once concealed beneath layers of dust and time. She realized in that moment that these diaries were not just artifacts. They were a bridge connecting her to a grandmother she had only known as a matriarch, but was now learning to view as a woman, filled with hopes, dreams, and fierce passion. Alara smiled softly, understanding that the tales of forbidden love were not simply relics of history, but a reminder that love endures, even when buried beneath the weight of fear and silence. With her heart beating a new rhythm, a mischievous whisper danced in her mind, challenging her to seek her own love story. Who says a little rebellion isn't paved with golden heart-shaped footprints? Alara nestled into the cozy nook of her grandmother's attic, surrounded by dust motes dancing in sunlit beams. She flipped the pages of the well-worn diaries, their yellowed edges whispering tales long forgotten. As she read, she felt the thrill of timeless emotions spring to life, the flutter of first love, the tingle of a secret rendezvous. It was as if each word yanked her back to the moonlit gardens of Eldermere, where her grandmother, Claire, had once stolen moments with a bold artist named Thomas. The aroma of earth after rain mingled with blossoms, saturating her imagination as she envisioned Claire's heart racing in the presence of forbidden romance. Much like the delicious tension in a late-night binge of Bridgerton on Netflix, intrigued, scandalized, yet utterly captivated by the plight of love trapped in societal constraints. But mere attraction was no match for the weight of expectations, as Alara soon discovered. Claire's family had grand dreams of propriety, meticulously crafting a future filled with all the right suitors in all the right ballrooms. The sound of clinking teacups and muffled conversations echoed through Alara's mind, a reminder that in the world her grandmother inhabited, love didn't hold the same currency as family name or wealth, just like in a Shakespearean comedy where love is thwarted by misunderstandings and mistaken identities. Claire found herself tangled in an intricate web spun by virtue and family honor, and with every nibble of her brittle cookie, Alara realized how much she related, caught between the words of the diary and the silenced echoes of her own heart. As the shadows of societal pressure loomed over Claire's burgeoning affection for Thomas, Alara could feel the tension crackling in the air like a live wire. The moonlit escapades, those secret meetings cloaked in the fragrance of night-blooming jasmine, were not enough to stave off the relentless march of an arranged marriage. With each diary entry, Alara's heartbeat synced with Claire's anguish, picturing her grandmother slipping through the garden's wrought iron gates, heart fluttering like a trapped dragonfly trying to escape a jar. It was an irony of fate. Here was a girl destined for a life scripted by others, while she, Alara, was given the freedom to discover that old heart, yet she felt shackled by her own choices. As she scribbled notes beside the diary, Alara couldn't help but channel her inner detective, channeling a bit of Nancy Drew's intuitive wit and gumption in her quest for truth. In fresh morning light, as she turned yet another page, Alara stumbled upon a vivid retelling of Claire and Thomas's last secret meeting, suffused with longing and despair. Tears of ink punctuated the words, as if Claire had spilled her heart onto the parchment, an indirect confession that cut through the ages like a sword. She imagined the soft gasp of Claire's breath catching in her throat, stifled by the weight of her family's demands, reminiscent of the climactic tension in a rom-com where the lovers nearly miss their chance. What truly made it poignant was that despite the tragedy lacing her grandmother's love story, there was a glimmer of courage that Alara desperately craved to embody. Perhaps love, after all, wasn't just as simple as happily ever after. It was messy and complicated, but achingly beautiful in its resolve to endure, even against the odds. As Alara turned the final page, it felt like the diary had woven a spell around her. She leaned back, considering the lessons concealed within those faded lines. Love could defy time, yet it also left bruises in its wake, developing scars that colored family legacies. The irony didn't escape her. Learning about Claire's passion had ignited a fire in her own heart, but it also left ash in the corners of her consciousness. With a wry smile, Alara realized she had to balance the weight of her family's expectations with the truth she had unearthed, the truth that authenticity demands courage, and perhaps a bit of rebellion. With a deep, indignant squaring of her shoulders, she decided it was time to better embrace her own story, wrestling her fate like an epic film, protagonist reluctantly stepping into the light. Because after all, who said love had to conform to anyone's rules? Alara shifted nervously in her grandmother's attic, where dust motes danced like tiny fairies in the shafts of pale light filtering through the cracked window. The old diaries, bound in worn leather and smelling faintly of cedar and secrets, seemed to beckon her. As she flipped the pages, her heart raced. Suddenly, the words jumped out at her like a jack-in-the-box, and she found herself face to face with Claire's tale. Claire's tear-stained ink told a story of passion and pain, revealing a pivotal moment that resonated with Alara's own life, which started to feel like a bad rom-com that she couldn't change channel on. Here was Claire, wrangling with her love for Thomas amid walls of societal expectations, much like Alara's own tormented heart for Julian, who wasn't exactly the standard choice for a nurturing family's golden child. It was a fateful night when Claire faced her parents, their voices rising like a storm, thick with disapproval, and the scent of the rich, home-cooked dinner that had once symbolized safety. The thought of rebellion hung heavy in the air, sour like overripe fruit, and Alara could almost hear the clinking of fine china crashing down, her dreams of freedom caught in a swirl of parental expectations. Claire's raw honesty in the diary spilled over, painting a picture of love so potent yet perilous that Alara could almost feel the electricity crack between her own fingers. The nostalgia tugged at her heartstrings, twanging like a guitar riff in an 80s flick, making her realize how painfully similar her situation was to that of her ancestors. With every twist of Claire's pen, the discord between love and duty felt like an incantation, summoning forth Alara's own fears of what her heart truly desired versus what tradition prescribed for her. As she turned the delicate pages, each crackle seemed to whisper secrets wrapped in velvety tones, recounting Claire's emotional chess match. With every confrontation with her parents, Claire's resolve battled against the looming shadows of their expectations, like a knight facing down a dragon. Only this time, the dragon wore a suit and flaunted a bank account. Alara couldn't help but chuckle at Claire's rebellion and remember how much she too loathed the silent battles that left bruises on her heart. Here was Claire, quarreling with her identity, demanding the right to choose her own path, while Alara felt shackled by unspoken rules that felt as archaic as a rotary phone, heavy and complicated. Could Alara really live the life her heart yearned for? Or would she find herself trapped in an endless cycle of hesitation and regret, just as Claire had so many years before? The wind howled outside, rattling the attic window like it was auditioning for a horror film role. But Alara remained anchored in her own inner storm. Images of Julian flickered through her mind, charming and carefree like a mischievous cat, but eternally just out of reach. What they had shared through childhood laughter and heart-stopping moments, like that summer when they snuck onto the school roof to watch clouds drift like popcorn, was constantly undermined by the clashing realities of their family's expectations. The haunting words from Claire's diary reverberated within her. Love could be a double-edged sword, sharp enough to carve out happiness, but also to tear apart the fabric of one's life. Irony dripped from her thoughts like melted butter. Why was love always so much easier to write about than to act upon? If Claire's confessions were any indication, the battle was just getting started. As Alara closed the diary, she felt as though she had stepped out of one world and into another. But this one was vibrant and alive, tinged with hope and uncertainty. The attic flooded with the golden light of late afternoon, illuminating the dust as if laying a spotlight on her own dilemma. With determination brimming in her chest, Alara resolved to embrace her inner Claire, to not let fear dictate her path. Perhaps it was time to step off the beaten path into the wild terrain of possibility, where love didn't require a script, but rather required the courage to improvise, just like Claire had done during that fateful night. She would seize the moment and pen her own story, diary in hand, heart on her sleeve, come what may. Beneath the flickering candlelight, Alara's heart raced like a wild stallion, galloping through the dust-laden halls of the past. With trembling fingers, she flipped the brittle pages of Claire's final diary entry, the ink still dark and haunting against the yellowed parchment. I chose duty over love, it declared, each word cutting deeper than a sword forged in betrayal. Alara could almost hear the echoes of 1,000 heartaches whispering through the walls, each sigh a reminder of the choice that had chained Claire to a man whose name was but a shadow of her true love. It felt as if the very essence of Claire's struggle seeped from the pages, wrapping around Alara like a ghost, urging her to confront the monstrous weight of her own choices looming ahead. With Claire's words still swirling in her mind like smoke from a forgotten hearth, Alara stood at a crossroads, both thrilling and terrifying, where love dared to challenge tradition. She had heaps to lose by following her heart. An entire village's purity culture, with its glaring eyes and wagging tongues, ready to skewer her choices like a sweet, roasting marshmallow over an open flame. It's just like The Notebook, she thought, stifling a laugh at the absurdity of comparing her dilemma to a movie from an age not her own. Yet, resistance felt like a thorny path strewn with the wilted petals of love lost to duty, and the air buzzed with the tension of a caged bird longing to spread its wings and soar. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears, and the scent of damp earth mixed with the musty parchment, filling her with an intoxicating cocktail of dread and hope. Then came the moment of inspiration. Raw and magnificent, Alara felt as if she were standing on the edge of a great cliff, wind tousling her hair, promising freedom in its icy fingers. Without knowing how or why she found herself moving, she sought out Julian, the embodiment of complexity wrapped in a bow of charm and mystery. Calling his name was like throwing a lasso into a storm, pulling him into the whirlwind of her fervent desire. They stood face to face, the tension between them crackling like static electricity in a summer storm. The soft glow of twilight cast shadows around them, their silhouettes dancing in the glow as she spoke. Let's escape together, just like Claire and Thomas dreamed of doing. Her words hung in the air, daring him to leap into the unknown with her. But Julian's eyes flickered with doubt, a tempest brewing beneath the surface as he battled the weight of expectation like an unwilling gladiator in the arena. He was the good son, the one everyone counted on to toe the line, to uphold the family's ironclad traditions, marriage, propriety, that whole jazz. And still, the scent of unfulfilled dreams lingered between them, a bittersweet aroma of desperation and yearning. He hesitated, then took a step closer, the tension vibrating in the air like the strings of a long silent lute. What was love, if not a series of choices, each fraught with potential disaster? And if Claire's sacrifice held any truth, would their love just become another tragic tale folded into the dusty annals of time? In that moment, The air thickened with the gravity of sacrifice, as Alara fully realized the absurdity of her predicament, wrapped in a bittersweet irony that would make even Shakespeare smirk. How could two flames ever truly be free if they remained shackled to the expectations of a world that seemed to thrive on extinguishing passion? The silence between them buzzed like a nail about to be driven into the wall, powerful yet suspended, the kind of pause that could shatter dreams or spark new ones. She could feel Claire's spirit, a whisper just behind her heart, nudging her to choose unrestrained love, divine and messy, just like life. With a fiery resolve, she took a breath, ready to challenge tradition and step into the unknown, knowing that true love was worth every perilous risk. The storm had not yet cleared from Alara's heart, but within the tumultuous echoes of her recent confrontation, a potent realization flickered like the first rays of dawn peeking through dark clouds. There she stood, in the quiet solitude of her grandmother's attic, surrounded by dusty, time-forgotten trunks and diaries that smelled of old paper and lavender, a scent reminiscent of tea parties long past. Alara could almost hear Claire's laughter mingling with the soft creaks of the wooden floor beneath her feet, like a ghostly soundtrack reminding her that love requires more than just warm feelings. It demands courage, the kind that swells in your chest like the last strain of a classic rock anthem. With a deep breath, she made a choice to honor Claire's bold spirit, not by shying away, but by stepping forward into a realm painted with the colors of love, not fear. The diaries, though frayed at the edges, pulsed with the life of forgotten centuries, each page a bridge connecting Alara to the whispers of her family's past. As she flipped through the faded ink and dramatic entries, the stories leaped off the pages, filling the attic with the sweet scent of history. Think of a vintage romantic comedy, where misfits find love against all odds in small-town Eldermere. Alara could feel the weight of Claire's decisions, a bittersweet cocktail of passion and sacrifice, as she scribbled down her own reflections, searching for her voice amidst the chaos. It was as if her pen were a mighty sword, slicing through the thick fog of despair that had been draped over her heart, revealing the vibrant tapestry of hope that lay underneath. Oh, but love is rarely as tidy as a beautifully wrapped gift. It's often a messy explosion of feelings that would make any YouTube unboxing video look like a serene yoga retreat. Alara had been tangled in the vines of hesitation, worrying what the townsfolk of Eldermere might think. So deep had she buried her own desires beneath layers of societal expectation. But the more she read about Claire's audacious escapades, the more Alara's resolve solidified, transforming into a fierce determination, one that could rival any action hero's battle cry. With each stroke of her pen, she sketched a new path, one that would lead her hand in hand with Julian, the very embodiment of the love she now craved. As wretched storm clouds rolled away, giving birth to an explosion of vibrant hues in the Eldermere sky, Alara took her first steps into a future unmarred by the ghosts of the past. She walked those cobbled streets, which still echoed with the laughter of 1,000 summers, her heart beating with the rhythm of newfound freedom. The crisp autumn air brushed against her skin, awakening her senses as she sought out Julian, her mind swirling with dreams of what could be. Perhaps it was ironic, she mused, how in shedding her fears she found the courage to embrace true love, a plot twist worthy of a rom-com finale where the hero finally gets their happily ever after. With a heart pounding like a bass drum at the club, Alara finally rendezvoused with Julian under the ancient oak, their own private setting, as timeless and gnarled as the tales etched in the diaries. As they exchanged shy smiles and whispered words, she could sense the village of Eldermere shifting, as if the very earth rejoiced at their bold union. A love story igniting like a firework on a pitch-black night. In that moment, surrounded by the scents of wood smoke and damp earth, Alara knew she was ready to weave together the echoes of love from the past with the promise of tomorrow. And with every shared laugh, stolen glance, and dare she say it, passionate kiss, they were not just starting their own chapter, but in fact, rewriting the narrative of love itself, a true saga that would resonate in the hearts of generations to come. In the heart of the quaint village of Eldridge, where every corner held whispers of stories past, Clara stumbled upon a treasure that sparkled more than any jewel, a dusty box tucked away in her grandmother's attic. The attic smelled of aged wood and forgotten dreams, a mix of mothballs and nostalgia that made her chest tighten with curiosity. As she pried open the rusty latch with a grating squeak, the box revealed its secrets, time-worn letters, crammed between layers of crumpled tissue like hidden gold nuggets waiting for a prospector. Clara could hardly believe her luck. It felt like she had just been handed a backstage pass to the greatest love story never told. Or maybe it was just an inconceivable family drama, like a soap opera, but without the high-sodium snack choices and dramatic midday commercials. As she unfurled the delicate pages, each letter came alive in her hands, crackling softly like distant fireworks. The smell of aged paper wafted up, earthy and sweet, bringing forth the essence of generations long gone. Clara could almost hear her great-grandparents' softly spoken words, filled with longing and passion during their romantic rendezvous amidst the chaos of war. "Oh, Helen," Thomas wrote, his inked words dancing across the page like characters in a thrilling drama series. Each day apart feels like a year in exile. If only he'd had Twitter, 280 characters could have sufficed to convey his heartache, and would have surely saved him some ink, too. Through the letters, Clara began to stitch together a colored quilt of emotions and experiences, each missive a patch that wove the rich tapestry of her ancestry. Helen's graceful handwriting, full of curls and swirls, echoed her spirit, an indomitable force, even as cannons boomed in the background like the world's worst sound system. Her words radiated warmth, telling tales of stolen glances and clandestine meetings under moonlit skies, where passion ignited like fireworks on the 4th of July. Clara laughed at the way her great-grandmother described her secret rendezvous, likening them to the thrilling plots of the romance novels she read by candlelight. Except real life was messier, the stakes higher, and sometimes you woke up with a face full of feathers from a straw mattress gone rogue. But not all was sunshine in this historical soap opera. The letters were laced with an undercurrent of pain, too. Thomas penned his grief as he faced the uncertainties of war, the scratchings of a heart half broken by distance, anxiety, and the occasional gnawing doubt, like a dog with a bone it couldn't bury. Underneath the ink, Clara could feel the vibrations of longing and fear, a heart-wrenching melody strumming through the years. With every letter she read, she found herself immersed deeper in a world of love that triumphed despite the looming specter of separation. Like a classic movie love story, where the protagonists always find their way back to each other, only with fewer dramatic plot twists, which was a miracle in its own right. As the dawn slipped through her window, casting golden rays upon the letters, Clara felt a surge of connection to these strangers, who were, in fact, her family. This collection was not just a box of artifacts. It was a roadmap of resilience and love etched in ink. In those moments of solitude, surrounded by the remnants of history, she wrapped herself in the warmth of their legacy, the love that had endured in the face of unyielding circumstances. Clara put down the letters, a subtle smile gracing her lips like the closing scene of a great romantic film, realizing that love was not just a fleeting emotion, but an enduring thread connecting her to her past. And as she looked forward, she felt a gentle nudge toward her own adventures, believing that perhaps, one day, she'd share her own collection of crazy love stories with the next generation. Mementos that would surely fill another dusty box and spark even more escapades. Clara held the first letter gingerly, as if it were a delicate relic of the past, its paper crinkling softly under her fingers. The scent of aged parchment and a hint of lavender perfume clung to the ink, creating a heady mix that transported her to another time. With each word, her imagination ignited, painting vivid pictures of her ancestors, whose lives had been woven together by love and secrets, much like the plot of a particularly dramatic telenovela. Intrigued, she grabbed her leather satchel, fortified with a notebook and a camera, setting out on a quest that promised to peel away the layers of her family's history like some cheesy reality show where contestants unearth generational skeletons. Little did she know, she was about to uncover more than a few dirty laundry tales that would make even her great aunt, Edna, smirk behind her knitting needles. Her first stop was the grand old manor that once echoed with laughter and whispered confessions. The floorboards creaked under her weight as Clara wandered through the dimly lit rooms, where dust motes danced like tiny fairies caught in sunlight. The air held a musty scent mixed with the remnants of forgotten family feasts, and the walls seemed to lean in, eager for Clara's revelations. There, beside an ancient portrait of a stern-looking woman whose gaze could make a hardened criminal confess, Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. That was it. This place was thick with secrets, and she was determined to unearth them. Feeling like a slightly less glamorous Indiana Jones, experiencing a treasure hunt that doubled as a family reunion without the awkward small talk. As the days passed, Clara's search took her from crumbling archives to chatting with family members who were essentially a mix of reluctant historians and rambunctious gossipers. Each interview was a revelation, like peeling back the layers of an onion, except instead of tears, it was more like incredulity as she uncovered tales of heartaches and hidden romances that would make Shakespeare blush. Her Uncle Tom, a self-proclaimed expert in the art of squandering love, recounted tales of his own disappointments, punctuated by exaggerated sighs that could rival the drama of a soap opera cliffhanger. Yet, amidst the laughter and the stories, Clara stumbled upon a particularly scandalous letter that hinted at a forbidden love affair. All the makings of a romantic comedy turned thriller that made her heart race with curiosity. This letter, penned in shaky script and safeguarded with a vibrant red ribbon, unleashed a whirlwind of emotions. It spoke of a romance that defied barriers, painting vivid images of candlelit rendezvous and heart-fluttering secrets shared in hushed tones. Clara's mind swirled with questions. Who was this daring lover? What kind of sorcery turned her ancestors into such star-crossed souls? It forced her to reflect on her own life, where commitment felt as enticing and terrifying as a roller coaster ride, thrilling, yet nerve-wracking. Suddenly, till death do us part seemed less of a sacred vow and more an open-ended question, a mystery yet to unravel, like spoiler alerts left hanging in midair. As she tucked away the secrets unearthed, Clara began to see her own relationships in a new light, infused with adventure, and, dare she say, a touch of the dramatic flair she thought only belonged in movies. The notes, tinged with longing and betrayal, made her reconsider the boundaries of love, loyalty, and the occasional flirtation with the forbidden. Perhaps her dating life could embrace spontaneity instead of stifling predictability, like switching from a rom-com to an action-packed thriller. Clara chuckled softly at the thought her love life could use more plot twists and fewer predictable dinner dates. Little did she know, her journey was just beginning, and the next chapter of her own story awaited just beyond the horizon, glittering like the bright lights of a New York City skyline at dusk. In a dusty attic filled with the scent of old wood and a hint of mothballs, Clara gingerly sifted through the yellowing letters that bore the weight of her family's secrets. Each fragile envelope crackled like dried leaves as she carefully opened them, revealing her great-grandmother Helen's handwriting, a delicate script reminiscent of butterfly wings. The words danced off the pages, alive with the passion and sorrow of a time long gone. It was like stepping into a sepia-toned film, where the air was thick with unspoken yearnings, and the echoes of laughter mixed with the sharp tang of regret. With every letter she read, Clara felt the ghosts of her ancestors wrapping around her like a worn quilt, promising warmth, yet whispering warnings of choices untaken and dreams abandoned. But within the lines of Helen's letters lurked a surprise that sent a shiver down Clara's spine. Helen had faced a crossroads that would make even the cast of The Bachelor squirm. Love or duty? The very notion seemed absurd. Who needed to pick one when both should be happily ever after? Yet there it was, penned in ink, that haunting moment when Helen had to sacrifice her heart's desire for the expectations of family. All at once, Clara felt as if she were standing on a seesaw, precariously balancing her own romantic entanglements against the weight of history. Imagine being caught between the catch of the century and family obligations. How was anyone ever meant to make the right choice when the heart played its own wicked game? As she flipped through the letters, a sense of irony settled in Clara's thoughts. Here she was, a woman in the 21st century, grappling with Instagram filters and texting dilemmas, yet her great-grandmother was wrestling with a heart torn by societal pressures. It was like comparing the emotional roller coasters of Game of Thrones to the mundanities of a rom-com. Both had their emotional depths, yet one literally involved dragons and a whole lot of political murder. Clara could almost hear the sigh of her great-grandmother resonating through time, a bittersweet melody that urged her to embrace authenticity. Even amidst a world heavy with expectation, perhaps understanding Helen's struggle could illuminate her own choices, guiding her through the tides of modern love. As dusk fell outside her window and the last golden rays slipped away, Clara's fingers traced the elegant loops of an old letter, heart racing with excitement and empathy. Images of candlelit dinners and whispered promises filled her mind, and she could almost smell the heady scent of lilacs, Helen's favorite flower, getting ready to bloom. It was a sensory journey that pulled Clara closer to her roots. She could almost hear the distant clink of china at family gatherings, the laughter, the heartaches, all wrapped in layers of history. With each revelation, the letters became a bridge across generations, their nostalgia inviting her to reflect on her own relationships. Could she too find the courage to carve a path defined by love rather than obligation, to bravely navigate her own stormy sea of romance with a newfound sense of purpose lighting her heart? Clara realized that understanding her family's legacy wasn't just about unearthed tales of love and sacrifice. It was about crafting her own narrative with a smirk that would make any rom-com heroine proud. She believed she could blend the best of Helen's lessons with a touch of modern humor, perhaps even tossing in a tick-tock dance challenge for good measure. As she set the letters aside, a plan formed in her mind, ignited by the courage of the women who came before her. The tides of time had washed across her family's history, shaping love in its myriad forms, and now it was her turn to ride the waves, with her great-grandmother's wisdom echoing in her thoughts. Clara felt ready to let love, not duty, chart her course, armed with the knowledge that the heart, much like time, is both a tempest and a gentle tide. Clara sat back in her chair, a pile of old letters fanned out before her like a deck of ancient cards, each one a portal to the past. The faint smell of aged paper filled the air, mixed with the musty scent of forgotten stories yearning to be told. Her fingers, now smudged with ink and nostalgia, traced the elegant loops of her great-grandmother Helen's handwriting, as if to conjure her spirit from the depths of time. With every sentence she read, Clara felt the weight of love's endurance through wars, economic pitfalls, and emotional upheavals. Undeniably, love always managed to find a way. It was as if she had stumbled upon a family treasure map, with each letter guiding her to the heart of a legacy that was richer than gold, stirring laughter and tears in equal measure, like a good rom-com after a long, hard day. The day of the family reunion dawned bright and promising. Yet Clara felt the familiar churn of nerves in her stomach, like a roller coaster she hadn't signed up for. Even the smell of Grandma Marge's famous potato salad, which the relatives lovingly dubbed a culinary crime, couldn't quell her anxiety. As she entered the bustling backyard filled with jovial relatives and the sounds of kids squabbling over who gets to sit on Uncle Joe's lap, Clara took a deep breath, collecting strength like Superman before a fight. She knew her mission: share the story of Helen and Thomas, the double love story for the ages, and somehow make it resonate with this chaotic crew. Her heart pounded like the beat of a pop song she couldn't quite place, yet felt in her bones, daring her to unleash this powerful narrative. As Clara began to weave her tale, the lively chatter of the reunion melted away, replaced by rapt attention and a smattering of laughter from her listeners. She described the youthful exuberance of Helen and Thomas, both stars of their own small-town drama, dodging the hurdles of life with a blend of optimism and a hefty pinch of irony when she recounted the story of how Thomas once sent Helen a love letter drenched in spilled coffee, because it wasn't until that letter dried that he realized he had brewed a masterpiece. A ripple of laughter burst forth, breaking the tension. In that moment, the taste of shared joy sweetened the air, like cotton candy at a carnival, and Clara could see the flicker of connections sparking, igniting conversations between cousins who had previously spoken only in polite nods. It was as if the ghosts of their ancestors were leaning in, not wishing to miss a single word of this tale of love's triumph over adversity. As Clara unveiled the complexities of her great-grandparents' struggles, she anointed their enduring love with a sense of fragility and resilience that echoed through generations. Hands clasped and eyes misted, her relatives made new memories while reconnecting over old ones, as if the letters had pulled back the veil of ignorance. Aunt Ruth shared a story long buried about her own heartache, inspired by Clara's revelation that every family has its imperfections, and sometimes love means peeling back the layers like an onion. It might make you cry, but ultimately leads to something richer. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a mixture of vulnerability and warmth that enveloped them, like a cozy blanket on a chilly evening. It was hilarious, yet painfully poignant, like that one awkward family photo where everyone's laughing, but you can see Grandma's eye twitching. Love can be messy and still beautiful. By the time Clara wrapped up her story, the reunion transformed into an impromptu therapy session, weaving together the threads of a shared legacy like an intricate tapestry. Cousins who once clung to petty grudges and misunderstandings were now embracing each other with laughter and tears, their voices mingling in the chorus of reconciliation. The sweet aroma of barbecue wafted through the air, mixing oddly but perfectly with the fragrance of olive branches around them, a symbolic gesture of peace. Clara sat back, surveying her family, each face illuminated by a newfound light of understanding, and realized the letters had wrought more than just stories. They had revived feelings long thought lost. Love, that age-old guerrilla fighter, had stealthily infiltrated their hearts, promising that this reunion was just the beginning, a tribute to Helen and Thomas that would echo through their lives forevermore. As Clara sat at her wooden kitchen table, illuminated by the warm glow of the afternoon sun streaming through the lace curtains, her heart felt like it was bursting with the echoes of laughter and whispers of love from faded pages. The letters she had unearthed, some smelling faintly of mothballs and old perfume, were more than just ink on paper. They were bridges spanning generations, each one a thread in the rich tapestry of her family's history. She could almost hear the rustle of her great-grandmother's petticoat as she read her passionate declarations to an unknown suitor. It was like diving into an emotional time capsule, each letter resonating with the perfume of longing and the inked promise of forever, igniting Clara's own thirst for connection and adventure. Certainly, it was a precarious dance of nostalgia, but for Clara, it was the only kind worth pursuing, because who wouldn't want a love story as exciting as a favorite rom-com, where the best scenes are buried in the footnotes of history? Inspired by these heartfelt correspondences, Clara set herself a mighty task to weave together the fragments of her ancestors' stories into a single chronicle encapsulated in a published book. Picture it, her cluttered living room transformed into a makeshift writer's den, strewn with manuscripts, coffee cups, and the occasional half-eaten slice of pizza, the sustenance of champions. Right, with each keystroke, she imagined her ancestors crowding around, cheerfully shaking their heads or nodding with approval, as if they were watching a particularly gripping episode of their own family saga unfold. Alongside the stories of love lost and found, she hinted at the absurdities, like Aunt Edna's disastrous blind date that ended with a flying pie, a moment that had become family legend. Clara chuckled at how these tales crossed time, connecting the dots like constellations on an ancient night sky, finding shape in the chaos of life's happenings. With the manuscript taking form, Clara felt an awakening deep inside her. Embracing her family's legacy took more than publishing letters. It stirred up her own desire for love and connection. She reflected on her own misadventures in romance, the awkward first dates that felt like a sitcom gone wrong. Heart pounding like a drum solo, she recalled the time a guy showed up with a bouquet of wilted flowers, leaving her to question if she had accidentally stepped into a scene from a bad romantic comedy. But through her ancestors' letters, she discovered an unexpected camaraderie. Their longing and heartaches echoed her own, and she realized that vulnerability was perhaps the most empowering stance of all. Like superhero capes that waved in battle, her family's history equipped her with strength, reminding her that it was worth putting herself out there, bloopers and all, as the final edits and revisions danced through her mind like stars twinkling above an eerily quiet campsite. She took a deep breath and prepared to share the culmination of her work with the world. With every printed page, Clara felt not only the weight of her ancestors' stories, but also a lighter sense of liberation. This book was more than a project. It was a lifeline, a testament to love that spiraled through the ages. The thought of readers flipping through the pages, experiencing the highs and lows alongside her relatives, sent shivers down her spine. It was as if she could hear the rustle of the pages mixing with the sound of family debates and laughing children, weaving together the past with their present. For the first time, Clara felt not only grounded in her roots, but also utterly free to explore the branches of her own story. With the book finally in print, Clara held it in her hands, marveling at the sight of her ancestors' voices echoing from its binding, tangible evidence of their love narratives. She could almost smell the aged paper wafting the scent of nostalgia. Each page a whisper of encouragement to embrace her journey of love. With this gift to future generations, she vowed to honor the connections that had shaped her family's identity while fearlessly crafting her own. She envisioned families gathered around their own kitchens, perhaps with a slice of that pie Aunt Edna had wildly flung, sharing stories inspired by the courageous letters that had bravely survived time. A legacy of love wasn't just about the past, but also a bold challenge to connect, laugh, and sometimes cry over the gory, muddy truths of love. And Clara was all in for the ride. In the heart of Alexandria, where the Mediterranean breezes carried the scent of salt, and spices mingled with the aromas of ancient texts, historian Lyra found herself navigating the chaotic remains of the fabled library of Alexandria. The air was thick with dust and mystery, as if the very stones held secrets trapped within their crevices. She could hardly believe her luck when her fingers brushed against weathered parchment, hidden beneath a stone slab, a moment that felt less like a coincidence and more like a scene from an Indiana Jones flick. Eagerly, she pulled it free, a gritty smile spreading across her face as she beheld the fragile manuscript, its pages whispering tales of yore, waiting for an audience daring enough to listen. With the sun setting behind her, casting a golden hue across the remnants of knowledge, she knew that this was no ordinary find. It was the key to unlocking a narrative long obscured by time and political scheming. As she carefully deciphered the cryptic script, Lyra's heart raced with each revelation. The manuscript unfolded a story as lush and tangled as the vines draping over Alexandria's crumbling columns. The gripping tale featured a powerful queen, fierce and cunning, whose fierce gaze could melt steel, paired with a renegade scholar who seemed determined to flaunt the rules of social hierarchy like a bad sitcom character. Their love, shrouded in secrecy and scandal, unfolded amidst the backdrop of political intrigue, echoing the star-crossed lovers of Shakespeare, but with fewer dramatic soliloquies and more desperate midnight rendezvous. With every stroke of her quill, Lyra felt them pulling her deeper into their world of stolen moments and illicit glances, a connection that transcended the ages, breathing life into the dry bones of history. But as the romance unfolded, so too did the unsettling truth about the world they inhabited, a realm where power writhed with the same fervor as desire. The queen and scholar spun their dreams against the sharp edges of societal constraints, a daily battle that felt alarmingly familiar. As Lyra read on, she couldn't help but chuckle at the uncanny parallels to modern-day dramas, where love and ambition often collide like caffeinated college students at the start of semester. With a crack of laughter punctuating her solitude, she marveled at how humanity's folly remained unchanged through the centuries. The eternal struggle of love against the cold machinery of politics, stretching across time like a well-worn tune. Yet the weight of their secrets pressed heavily upon her, for she recognized that unveiling this story could shift the very foundations of historical understanding. A wobbly house of cards, just waiting for a gust of wind to send it toppling. As Lyra dove deeper into the manuscript, she wrestled with a brewing storm in her gut. The knowledge that unveiling this affair could stir societal waves far wider than any ancient tide. The established historians, like a pack of protective lions, had constructed a narrative that left little room for this kind of scandalous entanglement. Perhaps they were too afraid to navigate the choppy waters of human emotion, preferring instead to represent queens as benevolent rulers and scholars, as pious thinkers under dusty robes. She could almost hear the groans of her colleagues echoing in her mind like a bad tune on repeat. Should she dare expose the truth, would she be the hero or the villain in this historical play? Every whisper of possibility felt electric, igniting her passion and hinting at the irony of how love's essential messiness was once again being swept under the proverbial rug. With the thick, musty scent of antiquity swirling around her, Lyra realized that she stood at a pivotal juncture, one foot in the past, the other threatening to plunge into a whirlwind of modern discourse. As the shadows of Alexandria crept around her, she resolved that the voices of the queen and the scholar would not echo in silence. Armed with a battered journal and a heart filled with audacious courage, she prepared to unveil the truth, ready to unleash their story upon the world, mismatched and beautiful in its undeniable humanity. This ancient affair, riddled with longing, risk, and the wild rush of forbidden love, was not just a treasure for the ages, but a powerful reminder that history is seldom straightforward. It is, after all, a collection of whispers waiting to be heard, an orchestra of echoes that had finally found its conductor in Lyra. As Lyra delved into the dusty depths of the manuscript, the shush of the brittle pages was a whisper from centuries long past, urging her to earwig. Each flick of paper sent a curl of musty air dancing around her like an unseen specter, carrying tales of clandestine meetings and shrouded betrayals. The words began to seep into her consciousness, igniting a wildfire of curiosity. But with each thrilling revelation came the cold prick of danger, nipping at her heels like a pesky, albeit quick-witted, mosquito in the summer sun. She couldn't help but chuckle at the irony. Here she was, a modern-day Indiana Jones, yet instead of whip-cracking adventures, her rewards might be a career in tatters and the ire of some very prominent families. Quite a turn from chasing artifacts, don't you think? The deeper Lyra plunged into her research, the more she felt eyes on her, shadows stalking her as if she were the last slice of pizza at a frat party. She could hear the low hum of city sounds outside, but within the dusty walls of the library, it was as if all the clocks had stopped ticking, every second swallowed by the weight of secrets. Shifty-eyed individuals appeared at every turn, their intentions cloaked under layers of intrigue. Was that a hint of cologne she caught as she passed by the slick-haired man in the corner, or merely a figment of her overactive imagination? Either way, the hairs on her neck stood up, as if warning her to retreat into the safety of the mundane. Yet that was precisely what she did not want to do. Just when Lyra thought the shadows couldn't cast darker, a ghost from her past materialized, sliding into her world like it was merely another Tuesday. Alfred, an old acquaintance with a penchant for drama, offered wisdom wrapped in layers of sarcasm, his voice dripping with caution. You know, Lyra, some stones are better left unturned, especially the ones that can crush you and your ambitions. He quipped, his eyes narrowing as if sizing up the consequences of her relentless pursuit. She appreciated his concern, but the thrill of the chase was almost intoxicating, like a double shot of espresso that left her trembling but excited. Who knew uncovering buried truths could lead to so much adrenaline? Or was that just fear creeping in on one particularly dreary afternoon, with the rain tapping a sluggish rhythm against the window panes? Lyra made a decision that sent a shockwave through her gut. Was it bravery or folly as she sat among the yellowing pages, contemplating whether to unveil the story that could upend established histories? The from the grave revelations seemed to scroll before her like an old-timey film reel, bubbling with the allure of truth and the daunting specter of retribution. The mingled sense of rain and old paper swirled around her like a protective cloak. Yet reality crashed down, hard and fast, reminding her that those with influence don't take kindly to being painted in unflattering hues. Her heart raced with the weight of choice, akin to watching a pivotal moment in a gripping thriller. Will the hero emerge unscathed? Or will she become just another faded name in history's annals? That evening, as the city lights flickered to life like a galaxy sprinkled across the skyline, Lyra felt a mix of trepidation and resolve joining forces in her chest. The city buzzed with life, yet she remained acutely aware of the shadows merging and twisting around her, conspirators in a game too precarious to play. She knew her decision would echo through corridors of power, disrupting the carefully woven tapestry that held so many prominent families aloft. And as she took a deep breath, smelling the delicious hint of street food and something eerily similar to betrayal wafting through the air, she couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she was about to uncover a truth that could change the very fabric of her world. With a sly grin that rivaled the Cheshire Cat's, she stepped forward into the embrace of the night, ready to face whatever secrets might unfold. Beneath the blazing sun of the Mediterranean, Lyra found herself at a crossroads of history and heartache. Armed with a worn notebook crammed with scribbled sketches and half-formed theories, she approached Thaddeus, an archaeologist whose charm rivaled Indiana Jones, complete with rumpled shirts and a lopsided grin that could melt the iciest of hearts. They exchanged conspiratorial nods, united by a singular mission: to uncover artifacts that history had hidden like a poorly executed game of hide-and-seek. As the laughter of street vendors mixed with the scent of roasted chestnuts wafting through the narrow alleys, Lyra felt a tingle of excitement coursing through her bones, a thrill that whispered, "You're on the edge of something monumental." Little did they know, they'd soon face enough obstacles to make even the most seasoned daredevil question his life choices. Their first challenge arrived in the form of rivals, a shifty duo whose thick mustaches seemed to twitch with every nefarious thought. These two were like the villainous henchmen from every adventure movie, lurking in the shadows, whispering schemes that reeked of betrayal as Lyra and Thaddeus sprinted from the remnants of a crumbling Roman villa. The dank smell of damp earth mixed with the sweat on their brows, telling tales of a history both thrilling and treacherous. Why are they always sneaking around with that creepy music playing? Lyra joked, catching her breath, but deep down, the irony of being chased by caricatures of themselves made her stomach churn. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them, prompting a hasty detour through a dusty olive grove, where the gnarled trees bore witness to their frantic escape. As days fractured into sleepless nights, the duo's quest soon transformed into a game that felt alarmingly like the Hunger Games. Between dodging the rivals and navigating archaeological sites threatened by careless development, the race wasn't just against time. It was a battle against all odds. One fateful afternoon, the ground beneath their feet shuddered, sending up dust so thick it veiled the sun like an ominous filter on an old film reel. Is that an earthquake or just my anxiety? Thaddeus quipped as they sprinted for cover, the stench of disturbed earth mixing with the acrid notes of fear. But despite the chaos, the thrill was palpable, like an electric current shooting through their veins. Nothing worth discovering comes without a little turmoil, right? They traversed landscapes that echoed with ancient whispers, the wind rustling through the ruins like an age-old storyteller. Each site they visited bore the scars of time and neglect, but also the potential for revelation. Broken pottery shards lay like forgotten clues on a sprawling canvas of history. The taste of clay dust lingered in the air, gritty against their tongues, a reminder of how close they were to unlocking the secrets of civilizations long past. Losing themselves in the raw beauty of each location, Lyra and Thaddeus could almost hear the distant laughter of those who walked these paths centuries ago. But as excitement shimmered in the air, so too did an overwhelming sense of dread. They had to hurry. The future of their research and the artifacts themselves hung in a precarious balance. In the end, racing through history was more exhilarating than either could have imagined, as they faced both mischief and mystery head-on. Each secret uncovered was a patch in the larger quilt they were sewing together, a tangible link to the past woven into their present. And with every clandestine meeting in dimly lit cafes and heated discussions under the watchful gaze of crumbling statues, their friendship solidified like concrete, sealing their fate as both archaeologists and adventurers. As they stood at the edge of a newly discovered site, hearts racing, Lyra quipped, "If this were a movie, this is where the audience would start holding their breath." And just like that, they plunged into the rabbit hole, ready to embrace whatever came next. Because history doesn't wait for anyone, and neither would they. the symposium, adorned with tapestries depicting heroic conquests and ancient wisdom, buzzed with the restrained excitement of the gathered scholars. Lyra stood at the lectern, a glimmer of mischief dancing in her eyes, while Thaddeus fidgeted beside her, clutching the manuscript like a long-lost treasure. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood and old parchment, a fragrance that had given scholars comfort through centuries. But today, it was laced with tension. As they prepared to unveil the contents of the manuscript, the audience couldn't help but lean in, whispering like children waiting for a magician's trick. Little did they know, the act they were about to witness would be a revelation that would turn the world on its head, much like a plot twist in a telenovela that left everyone gasping. Unraveling the threadbare curtain of historical narratives they clung to so tightly. With a flourish, Thaddeus opened the manuscript, its pages crackling like fire, as if awakening from a long slumber. The contents, an intimate account of a forbidden love affair between a renowned queen and her clandestine lover, filled the air with an electric charge. Gasps echoed through the hall, mingling with the scent of musty books, and the faint smell of sweat from scholars too absorbed in their debates to notice the rising heat. Outrage erupted, faces contorted with disbelief, as if someone had just cursed their ancestors. This wasn't just a bombshell. It was a nuclear explosion in the world of academia. A scandal involving love, betrayal, and political intrigue, more dramatic than any episode of Game of Thrones could ever imagine. As the murmurs and sharp intakes of breath spread like wildfire, Lyra's heart raced with a mix of joy and anxiety. Here, amidst the polished desks and earnest stares, the truth of the Queen's romantic escapades was finally being told, shattering the pristine facade of history. The seasoned scholars, with their pinched noses and prickly eyebrows, reacted violently, like lions in a literary cage being confronted with the very idea of vegetarianism. How dare these two young scholars challenge the gospel of history they had sworn to uphold? The air crackled with indignation, creating an atmosphere thicker than oatmeal, a mix of discomfort and disbelief palpable enough to cut with a sword. Yet in the depths of her soul, Lyra knew that this swirl of chaos was merely the beginning of a much-needed revolution. Thaddeus, buoyed by the fiery responses, couldn't help but chuckle as he recalled a line from a classic movie, thinking how they'd taken on the role of rebels without a pause. The reality was that the revelation was forcing the scholarly elite to confront their own biases, and the often malleable nature of truth in history. As the heated discussion unfolded, the echoes of laughter and anger mixed, creating a symphony of chaos. The age-old battle between comfort and truth. For every scholar squawking in indignation, another stood transfixed, contemplating the grandeur of the Queen's lost legacy and the integrity of recorded history. The realization dawned that perhaps every dusty tome needed a little shaking up, and maybe, just maybe, love stories were worthy of page after page, analogy after analogy, woven into the fabric of history itself. As the bewilderment began to settle into a simmer, Lyra and Thaddeus exchanged glances, sealing a pact forged in the fires of ancient love and modern skepticism. The manuscript had done more than reveal a scandal. It had birthed a movement, a clarion call to all historians to reconsider their narratives, to excavate the layers of perception, veiling the truths of long-gone eras. The palpable thrill of discovery, layered with the bitter undertones of agitation, danced in the air, leaving an aftertaste of irony that tasted like bittersweet dark chocolate, with every eye fixed on them and every heart pounding in conspiracy. It felt as if they had orchestrated a masterful symphony of history that refused to fade into silence. In that moment, while the world remained suspended in disbelief, they grasped an essential truth. The echoes of history are often just the whispers of love, waiting to be heard anew. In the shadow of a crumbling library that smelled of damp parchment and old secrets, Lyra stood defiant in the face of the storm brewing around her. The whispers of dissent swirled like autumn leaves caught in a blustery wind, each rustle carrying the weight of scorn and skepticism, yet much like a lone hero in a superhero flick. Think Wonder Woman with a side of Batman's grit. Lyra emerged as a beacon of truth, surrounded by a sea of doubt. The ancient manuscript she unearthed, now a dog-eared relic, promised to rewrite history, but not without igniting a fierce debate that echoed through the hallowed halls of academia and beyond. Oh, how the literary lions roared, readying their claws for the scholar they saw as a mere mortal daring to approach their pedestal with news of a long-buried past. As the backlash surged, a cacophony of discontent rang daily through comment sections and dusty library meetings. The naysayers armed with their own interpretations like sword-wielding knights. Undeterred, Lyra bore the burden of her discovery, each passing day feeling heavier, like she was carting around a university's entire library on her back. But with every scornful comment, she felt the spark of resilience light up inside her like a pop-up toaster, conquering a burnt bagel. Soon, her fiery determination ignited a movement. Scholars and enthusiasts alike rallied behind her banner, envisioning a renaissance of accuracy that had long been overshadowed by myth and fabrication. After all, truth, much like an old vinyl record, found a way to play its tune again. popping and crackling to the surface despite attempts to silence it. Word spread about the ancient manuscript, a delicate tapestry of ink and history sprouting tales previously dismissed or forgotten. Investigators, the kind who resembled extra characters from a crime drama, flooded libraries and archives like detectives on a caffeine-fueled binge, hoping to find their own piece of this historical conundrum. They rummaged through dusty tomes, flipping pages that had not felt the breath of fresh air in decades, guided by the hope of uncovering truths that had slumbered like a dragon tucked away in a forgotten cave. The soft rustling of pages was punctuated by the occasional cough and a collective intake of breath when new discoveries sent ripples through the air. It was as if history itself was suddenly struck by an electric current, shaking off the dust of ignorance and regaining consciousness with every revelation. In the quiet moments between the chaos of discovery, Lyra often retreated to her corner cafe, where the aroma of rich coffee mingled with the sweet and buttery scent of fresh pastries and her ever-present doubts. Stirring her cup, she reminisced about her journey, picking at the foam as if it could yield answers. To think that a single manuscript, fragile as a soap bubble, yet powerful enough to challenge the status quo, had turned her life upside down, was a bittersweet irony worthy of a Shakespearean sonnet. She felt as if she were an unlikely protagonist in a tale where each voice mattered, a symphony playing a nuanced melody, reminding her that even the faintest echo contributes to the crescendo of history. These reflections became a solid anchor, grounding her amidst the turbulent waves of public opinion. As the dust settled and the echoes of academia's backlash transformed into a symphony of acceptance, Lyra understood a profound truth. Every fragment of history, whether grand or mundane, contained an essential voice yearning to be heard. The past, she realized, was not merely a monotonous lecture of dates, but a vibrant tapestry woven by countless storytellers, misfits, and heroes alike. With the manuscript's revelations championing accuracy and integrity, a new era dawned, one where even the lost voices of yesterday could rise. In an ironic twist, she marveled at how controversy could catalyze discovery, much like an unexpected plot twist in a gripping novel. Lyra stood amidst the remnants of doubt, whispering to herself, "For every echo of the past, there's a future waiting to be written." In the resplendent court of King Alaric, where gilded chandeliers hung like constellations, and the scent of roasted duck wafted through the air, Lady Isolde wove her way through the throngs of courtiers. The marble floors echoed with laughter and flattery, layered with a hint of desperation, as nobles scrambled to impress the king. Yet, resting amidst the clamor of extravagant gowns and the clinking of goblets, Isolde's heart thrummed at the sight of Sir Cedric. His armor gleamed as if the sun itself had become jealous of his radiance, and each time his laughter rang out, a rich, warm sound like a bard's melody. She felt her resolve melting away like a wax seal under a flame, but those coveted moments were like rare jewels. For every glance they exchanged bore the weight of secrecy and the sting of danger, as though they were characters trapped in a Shakespearean play that threatened to spill over into tragedy. Unbeknownst to the merry courtiers, tensions brewed beneath the lavish surface of this courtly revelry. Lord Morwen, the king's shadowy adviser, lurked in the corners, plotting darker schemes like a villain from a penny dreadful. His eyes, as cold and shifty as a snake's, scanned the room, always searching for weakness, much like that guy at a party who hovers around the last piece of pizza. It was Morwen's insatiable thirst for power that cast a pall over the ballroom, his whispered plots weaving through the air like a noxious fog, while Isolde and Cedric dreamt of moonlit trysts by the lake. Morwen's schemes dripped with the smell of treachery, a stench that threatened to suffocate their burgeoning love. As the music swelled and the dancers twirled like leaves caught in a soft breeze, Isolde found herself confiding her hearts, longing to the cool walls adorned with tapestries depicting valiant knights. Her laughter mingled with the sound of rustling silk, and beneath the laughter lay her unease at the very real possibility of being discovered. For in such a place, love was as precarious as a juggler's flaming torches. One slip, and everything would ignite. The joy of stolen glances was interwoven with the fear of Morwen's scheming machinations. Still, Isolde dared to revel in those moments, imagining a future where love could conquer even the darkest intrigue, channeling her inner Elizabeth Bennet and calculating the chinks in the armor of societal expectation. Under the light of the torches, the air felt electric, charged with secrets and unspoken desires. There, amidst the regal splendor, Cedric found himself torn between duty and devotion, his heart racing as he caught Isolde's eye. Each stolen moment felt like an act of rebellion, a daring escape from the heavy chains of obligation. And with each fluttering heartbeat, he contemplated the risks involved. Cedric may be a knight sworn to protect the king, but in Isolde's presence, he felt like a mere man, a daring adventurer in his own romantic epic. The idea of a sword fight with destiny was more thrilling than any battlefield. Each quirk of Isolde's smile seemed to scream, "Let's write our own story." But every romance has its shadow, and in this case, it was cast by none other than Lord Morwen, who had identified the spark between the knight and the noblewoman as an opportunity. or perhaps a threat. Intrigue wrapped tightly around the court, like a noose slowly tightening, as whispers of scandal began to weave through the halls. Isolde's heart raced, not just from love, but also from the fear that they could be caught in Morwen's web of deceit. Ah, the irony, a love story blooming amidst the decay of trust, with Morwen as the villain, and Cedric and Isolde as the unsuspecting heroes. If only they could reach some grand conclusion, akin to a blockbuster movie, where love always triumphed. Alas, life has a way of subverting even the best laid plans. And amidst the lavish banquets, tragedy loomed ever closer. In the dim glow of twilight, shadows danced across the stone walls of the castle as Lady Isolde and Sir Cedric stole precious moments together, blissfully unaware of the dark currents swirling around them. Their clandestine meetings, often hidden behind heavy tapestries thick with secrets and dust, felt as electric as a storm brewing in the distance. Isolde's heart raced, every stolen kiss igniting her spirit like dry kindling catching fire, while Cedric's laughter, rich and warm, echoed in the air, making the very walls blush. Yet, in this enchanted cocoon, the faintest whispers began to bloom, like wildflowers sprouting through cracks in the cobblestones, turning their love story into a scandal fit for the gossip-hungry court. Yes, a sweet symphony of deceit played, but it mingled with an undercurrent of palpable danger, sweetening the air with an intoxicating blend of desire and treachery. Enter Lord Morwen, the spider lurking in the shadows of their passionate web, his sharp mind like a hawk's gaze, ever watchful and predatory. His beady eyes caught wind of the murmurs that rippled through the court. Oh, how the court loved to weave tales in a twist of ironic fate. The very whispers intended to woo the heart of Lady Isolde into a grand tapestry of emotional fidelity, instead caught the scent of betrayal. Morwen fancied himself a puppeteer, giddy at the thought of using the secret of Cedric's affections against the fun-loving nobleman. As he plotted, the light of the court dimmed with the barbs of his cunning schemes, the laughter of banquets overshadowed by the heavy smell of intrigue and the metallic taste of impending doom. Tension thickened in the air, as sharp and biting as the chill of winter, when news of Sir Cedric's accusation rang through the hallowed halls like the clanging alarm of a battle horn. Treason, they called it. The weight of the word sliced through Isolde's heart, leaving behind a hollow ache that echoed with every beat. A swirl of parchment was carried on the lips of servants, their eyes wide as they painted scenes of Cedric's standing trial, a mere pawn being swept away like chaff in the cruel winds of fate. The stifling scent of sweat and fear mingled with candle wax, clung to the court like a sinister perfume, as she took in the full scope of her lover's perilous plight, wrestling with heartbreak and loyalty in a shivering grip. Every shuddering breath brought her closer to a decision that felt more daunting than facing a dragon. Should she flee to his side, or stand firm with the crown she'd pledged her soul to? As she paced like a caged lioness, the weight of royal duty pressing upon her like an iron corset, she couldn't help but think of the stark contrast between treachery's cold embrace and the fiery warmth of love. With each fleeting moment, visions of Cedric's smile, bright and mischievous, clashed dramatically against her fears of losing him to the gallows, or worse, the dark, silent torment of a life unlived. She could almost hear the faint echoes of Shakespeare's lovers calling to her in a haunting refrain. To thine own self be true. Ah, but in a world where honor paved the path and deceit wrapped around hearts tighter than a noose, could she afford such leniency? So many choices filtered through her mind, each one a fragrant blossom that held the bitter seed of consequence. At last, after enduring enough torment to break a lesser soul, Lady Isolde found herself standing on the precipice of her heart's desire. The walls of the castle, a mere backdrop to the tempest within. She'd need to reveal her love, let the court's derision rain down upon her like an unexpected spring storm, and find the courage to confront her fears. With a fierce determination fueled by passion, she cast aside the heaviness of loyalty, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts, as swift as arrows flying through the night. In this moment, wild and raw as a hero leaping into battle with no armor but love, she vowed to rescue Sir Cedric from the clutches of despair. With every fiber of her being, she knew she would forge her own path, scandal be damned. Sometimes, love's sweetest song is sung amidst the chaos of deceit and desire. The air hung heavy in Lady Isolde's dimly lit chamber as she paced like a caged lion, her mind racing faster than a horse on the home stretch. Cedric languished in prison, a victim of Morwen's snare, and the looming scandal threatened to tear apart the fragile fabric of their society. Isolde could almost taste the bitterness of defeat, mixed with the metallic tang of determination that pulsed through her veins. With every tick of the old clock, she felt the storm brewing outside, a perfect metaphor for the turmoil swirling in her heart. Gathering her cloak, she made a silent vow. She would uncover Morwen's treachery and set Cedric free, even if it meant sticking her hand into the heavily poisoned pot of lies and deceit. The faint sound of footsteps echoed down the stone corridor. As Isolde crept toward the hidden alcove where she had stowed away the first piece of evidence, a tattered letter sealed with Morwen's telltale wax. The musty smell of old parchment filled her nostrils, mingling with the sweet scent of a nearby flower that that somehow thrived even in the shadows. As she sifted through her belongings, a sly grin crept onto her lips when she thought of the dramatic reveal she would orchestrate, like something straight out of a theatrical production. But her confidence was short-lived. The very next moment, a familiar figure materialized from the gloom. Sir Lionel, someone she had once trusted implicitly, now a masquerade of shadows and hidden motives. "Aren't you a little too deep in your curiosities, my lady?" he sneered, and just like that, her heart sank. The storm clouds above her growing darker. Isolde's indignation flared like the first striking jolt of thunder. Betrayal stung more than any dagger ever could. Sir Lionel had been her confidant, a supposed beacon of support in this tumultuous sea of scandal. Yet here he was, a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. The irony was rich and ripe, like an overripe fig, as she realized that the only paths to allyship were riddled with slippery double-crossers. With grit and determination, she resolved to use his treachery against him. Two can play the game of shadows. After all, armed with newfound resolve, Isolde adjusted her grip on her hidden findings, feeling the weight of the parchment as power rather than peril. And she stepped forward into the storm, ready to challenge both Lionel and Morwen. Every piece of evidence she uncovered was like a puzzle being forced into an incompatible frame, grating against her hopes and visions for a future with Cedric. Each manipulation of truth felt as jagged as shards of glass, with Morwen's name etched across them. Glistening with deceit, late-night meetings in shadowy corners, and hushed conversations echoed in her mind, transforming her thoughts into a vivid tapestry of betrayal, woven by the hands of deceitful puppeteers. Desperation fueled her search, a drive that ignited a fire within, hotter than any hearth in the castle. As the storm raged on outside, capturing the sound of wind weaving through the crevices, Isolde vowed to expose Morwen's sinister game before it swallowed her world whole. In the heart of that tempest, Lady Isolde emerged like a phoenix from ashes, her spirit as wild as the dark clouds swirling above her head. The walls of the castle began to whisper the tales of her bravery, and the air crackled with the electricity of her defiance. With each misstep, she felt the weight of her mission grow, but so did her cunning. She became a shadow herself, moving stealthily through the confines of power and manipulation. With a bittersweet mix of humor and resolve, she pictured Cedric's grin on the day they could laugh about the absurdity of all this, like a scene from a Shakespearean comedy gone wonderfully awry. The storm may rage on, but in the eye of her tempest was a burning desire for truth, and she would see it through, come hell or high water. The ballroom echoed with the laughter and chatter of the highborn, their silks and velvets swirling like a tempest of color under the flickering chandeliers. As Lady Isolde stepped forward, her gown shimmering like 1,000 stars plucked from the heavens, she wielded an intricate scroll like a sword, unsheathed in battle. A hush descended, where even the clinking of crystal flutes ceased, replaced by the palpable tension hanging in the air, a mix of curiosity and the faint scent of fear. It was a moment that felt as weighty as the world itself, a canvas painted with intrigue, ready to unveil a scandal that would rewrite the histories of them all. The nobles braced themselves, their hearts racing like a colt's at the sound of a starting gun, unaware they were about to bear witness to an earth-shaking revelation of treachery from the much-feared Lord Morwen, who stood across the room, his expression a mask of cunning calmness as he toyed with a wine glass filled to the brim with dark, red liquid. As she unfurled the scroll, the words spilled forth like a torrent from a dam, each one laced with the fire of her indignation. Isolde detailed Lord Morwen's heinous dealings, crimes cloaked in whispers that festered beneath the polished surface of their society. Gasps echoed through the hall like the breaking of tiny porcelain figures, the nobles' faces shifting from curiosity to shock, their jeweled necklaces gleaming with the light of the chandeliers, appearing almost like chains of guilt forged for their silent complicity. Amidst the chaos, as Morwen's carefully constructed fortifications teetered, Isolde surprised them all by confessing her own love, not just for justice, but for Cedric, whose eyes lit up like the brightest star on the darkest night. A declaration that sent tremors through the assembled crowd like the aftershocks of an earthquake. It became evident that this was no common ball, but rather the stage for a visceral tale of betrayal and longing, adorned with velvet drama and stark reality. And there he stood, Cedric, with his shoulders squared and a heart pounding like a war drum, unwilling to let Isolde wade through the storm of scandal alone. The atmosphere crackled with tension as he advanced toward Morwen, every step a submission to fate rather than fear. Like an ancient hero summoned forth from myth, Cedric's resolve radiated from him, merging with the sense of perfume and sweat that filled the air, creating a heady mixture that promised both glory and devastation. Morwen's icy demeanor faltered, a shadow flickering across his face as he realized that this was a duel not just of swords, but of hearts, a revelation that the court was far more interested in than in any trifling matters of wealth or status. The audacity. What a plot twist this was. Even the finest playwright wouldn't have dared to script his own unraveling in such a splendidly chaotic manner. With courage honed by love, Cedric found his voice, calling out to Morwen, a challenge bursting forth like a lion's roar in place of an expectant hello. The tension stretched, a taut string ready to snap, as the two men squared off, their eyes locked in a silent battlefield. Gasps punctuated the air as Cedric leveled his accusations. The stakes were as high as a castle turret, and the noble onlookers could hardly blink, caught between horror and delight as the confrontation spilled forth before them. Suddenly, the ballroom erupted, dishes rattled, and gasps mingled with the sweet whispers of silk skirts twirling uneasily, as Cedric confronted Morwen with the ferocity of a knight defending his beloved, unaware that chivalry itself hung in the balance like a delicate ornament on a rickety tree. Morwen, a snake in a velvet suit, sneered, perhaps a legacy of his treacherous petulance, unable to reconcile that he was the villain in this twisted tale. The showdown unfolded with all the grace of a grand ballet turned chaotic, as Cedric lunged forward, shattering the last remnants of Morwen's composure. The clanging of swords rang out, a symphony of metal against metal that sent shivers down spines and left the audience breathless. Each clash echoed in long-forgotten corridors of the castle, where once chaste whispers roared to life, revealing ancient secrets collected in cobwebbed corners. With the balance of destiny hanging by a thread, the duel played out like a riveting tale. The tension, thick as fog, wrapped itself around the crowd. Everyone was desperate for a hero, for a resolution. As dust settled and the truth came about, it was not just fates that were determined that night, but a love story deepened, quaked at the edges, and finally emerged like a phoenix rising from the ashes of scandal and loyalty. The air crackled with tension as Morwen was led away in chains, her normally fierce spirit deflated like a punctured balloon. The clang of metal against metal echoed through the stone corridors of the castle, a grim reminder of her fall from grace. Meanwhile, Cedric stood tall, his chest tightening with a mixture of triumph and concern, his fingers itching to reach for Isolde. The once dark clouds of scandal hung heavy over the kingdom, stifling the sun and leaving the villagers whispering through cracked lips and narrowed eyes. But amid the whispering swirls of treachery, a flicker of hope ignited a beacon that would guide the lost towards the light of truth. With Morwen's arrest came an unexpected outcome, a spark of audacity ignited in the heart of Isolde. She stood before King Alaric, fiery determination weaving through her every fiber. The stench of fear washed away by the scent of jasmine from her favorite dress. She declared her unwavering loyalty to Cedric, her voice like a forging sword, clanging against the echoes of doubt and scandal that had marred their love. King Alaric's brow knitted like an overcooked pasta, hard and unforgiving. depths of his royal gaze, admiration flickered. Inspired by her courage, the weight of judgment began to lessen, and the king, enthralled by the drama, granted them permission to love openly like a gift that was both a crown and a shackle. Emerging hand in hand, Cedric and Isolde felt the powerful surge of the crowd envelop them like a warm cloak. The kingdom had witnessed the shattering of expectations, and the people chattered like finches at dawn, their voices weaving tales of romance laced with scandal. Laughter mingled with the faint scent of roasted chestnuts wafting through the streets, a sweet balm against the bitterness of betrayal. Cedric, with a cocky grin reminiscent of a young pirate flirting with destiny, pulled Isolde closer, his pulse roaring like a battle drum in his ears. Their love, once hidden like a treasure in a buried chest, now bloomed in public view, brightening the dark corners of a kingdom hungry for hope. But for every hero, there lies an ironic twist, as tales of defiant love tend to attract both admirers and dissenters. Whispers of jealousy crept like a shadow through the marketplace, and snickers from the naysayers brushed against their shoulders like a chill wind. Morwen, even in captivity, plotted her comeback with an intensity that could rival any blockbuster villain, plotting revenge within the stone confines of her prison cell. Yet, as Cedric and Isolde paraded their love with laughter, exchanging playful jabs over benign royal etiquette, the horizon seemed to shimmer with the light of fresh possibilities. Their bond grew resilient amid the chatter, like vines twisting defiantly against the stormy gales, refusing to break. As the legend of their love entwined itself with the fabric of the kingdom, people began to recount tales by the crackling fire, glancing nervously as if Morwen herself might leap from the shadows. "Have you heard about the couple that danced on rumors?" they would ask, eyes sparkling with curious mischief. Isolde and Cedric became symbols of defiance, their story blending into the folklore like sweet honey drizzled on warm bread. "They say love can conquer all," some would whisper with a wink, and in that moment Cedric would toss a charming grin at Isolde, unearthing the laughter hiding in their shared glances. Together, they forged a new legacy, vibrant and undeniable, a love story that would withstand the test of time, echoing long after the last flicker of the campfire had faded out.